Last night I had my first ever lucid dream, if that's what you could call it. I'm not sure if that's what it was. I think so, from what I understand about lucid dreaming, but perhaps you can clarify after I tell you my story if that was a lucid dream. Because this is kind of a continuation from a video I made about a month ago that's also on my YouTube channel called, I titled it Analyzing Recurring Nightmares. Because in that video, I talked about how I've had this recurring nightmare for like close to 30 years, where I'm driving a car and the brakes fail. And it was based on a real life trauma that I had, in which, as I explained in that video, I was driving my stepdad's car and the brakes failed. And it was something that didn't really bother me that much at the time. I just kept going. And even though I hit the car in front of me, but only gently, so it wasn't that big a deal. And in my foolish teenage sort of invincible kind of mentality, I continued going, and I didn't allow the terror of that moment to faze me. But obviously it did, because it's been a recurring nightmare I've had ever since, because that was in the 90s. And so I still have this recurring nightmare. Well, I had this recurring nightmare that I would be driving and my brakes would fail, and I'd be like trying the hardest I can, like stepping on that pedal with all my might, but it just wouldn't stop. And it's a horrible dream, because every time I ever drove in my dream, this would happen to me. The brakes never work in my dream, even though I drive in my waking life, and I've never had any problem with brakes since that incident. So in that video, I talked about how I wonder if me talking about this, like some sort of a therapy for the PTSD I suffered, which I suppressed as a result of the brakes failing, but it resurfaced in my dream, because recurring nightmares, I think, are suppressed trauma that you didn't deal with in your real life. But I asked myself, does talking about it heal you from it? A bit like facing the trauma in reality that your dream is trying to tell you about. A bit like dealing with Freddy Krueger in Nightmare on Elm Street. Does that make it go away? And do you know what? I've been wanting to tell you guys this, those of you who watched that original video, because it does. The fact that I made that video and talked about it with you guys for the first time has healed me, because not long after that, I had a dream where I was driving and there was nothing wrong with the brakes. It was just normal driving. And that was the first time that ever happened to me. And I'm thinking that maybe because I exercised the demon of the failed brakes in making a video and talking about it. So yes, you can heal your repressed trauma that resurfaces in the form of recurring dreams by talking about it. Yeah. So I've been wanting to tell you that ever since it happened, because this dream in which I was driving a car with fully functioning brakes happened a couple of weeks ago, and I remember waking up and thinking, I'm healed. That was the first time I was able to drive without having brake failure in a dream, and I totally attribute it to talking about it for like 20 minutes in the video. That's all my dream was trying to tell me. Just talk about it. Face up to the fact that you took a serious risk with your life and other people's lives by continuing to drive. Because I borrowed that car again, knowing that the brakes weren't working properly, but I thought I'll just deal with it if it happens again. And that was the foolishness of my teenage ways, my Gen X teenage ways. But what I want to talk about in this video, which is kind of a continuation on that, is that I have another recurring dream, which I also believe is connected to my past trauma that I repressed, which is that for all my life, I've had dreams frequently about being lost, where I'm wandering around a city that is kind of like familiar and unfamiliar to me at the same time. And I'm always alone in these dreams, and I'm trying to get home, or sometimes I might be trying to find my way to work or to school or whatever, but I never get there. And I'm looking for this familiar street. I'm looking for something that I recognize that will take me home. And I just wander this maze of streets, and it just goes on, and it's really stressful. And this is something that never happens to me in my waking life. In fact, I love the concept of going on holidays, like in Europe especially. You can do this where you just wander the back streets and you just get lost, and around every turn there's a new discovery. I love that. But in my dreams, I have this experience in these cold, barren, concrete, wilderness type settings where it's like just miles and miles of roads and buildings and no people and cars, and I'm on my own and I can't find my way home, and all I want is to get home. And when I think about why I have this dream, I believe it's because the first 7 years of my life were spent traveling, and because of my parents' circumstances, we went from one country to another, and I never was able to settle down anywhere, go to school, make a bunch of new friends, learn a language, and then suddenly we had to leave and say goodbye to everybody and have to make new friends, learn a new language, get used to a new home, and learn my route home from school. And there were times when I got lost, where I couldn't find my way home. And I remember one time where I think this was in Costa Rica, where I went to some party. It was like a birthday party or something like that, and the parents were driving me home afterwards, but I couldn't remember where I lived, and I didn't know my address. I couldn't remember my address. I tried to describe it to them, and we spent hours and hours driving round and round trying to find my home. And eventually I got really distressed, and I thought I'd never get home again, because how could I explain it to them? I didn't have the language. I just knew what my house looked like. So we went around looking at all these houses, and I was like I was trying to explain, it looks like that one, but it's not that one. And I got home eventually, hours later, and by some miracle, we found my street. And that was how chill it was in those days. Like, as a Gen Xer who grew up in the 70s and 80s, like the parents didn't have my parents' contact details, and it was so lax. We were left to our own devices. And I should have known my way home by then, but I just didn't. I should have known my address, but I didn't. So the fact that this happened, and I think it happened on other occasions as well in other places where I lived, where I always got lost as a kid, because many times we'd be out shopping and then I'd wander off in a department store. I'd see a toy I like or whatever, and then next thing I know, I couldn't find my parents, and I'd be lost in the store, and then they would make an announcement that they'd found this little boy, and if the parents could come to collect them. This is something that happened often when I was a kid. I often went wandering off, and they had to make an announcement to find my parents. So, and it's happened to me in countries where I couldn't speak the language too. So it was just part of my childhood. And so I think that's why I have this recurring dream. To this day, I'm now 52. Every few months, or maybe more frequently than that, I have a dream where I'm just wandering the city on my own, trying to find my way home. And that's the entire mission of my dream, is just to get home. And I'm tired, and I'm confused and I'm distraught, and I never make it home in these dreams or to whatever destination it is. Sometimes I'm trying to find my way to school or to work. Depends how old I am in my dream. But last night, I had this dream where I was wandering around looking for a bus stop to go somewhere. I can't remember where I was trying to go, and I couldn't find the bus stop. And I eventually ended up on a motorway, or like a freeway in American. I was walking along the motorway trying to find a bus stop. And then I stopped and said, do you know, I'm so fed up of looking for this friggin' bus stop. And at that moment, I suddenly was in a vehicle and I just stepped on the accelerator and I zoomed off. It was so fast. It was like as if I was in a spaceship, and no longer was I lost. And the dream just moved on to something else. You know how in your dream you suddenly switch from one reality to another. But I do remember thinking at that time, holy shit, I've just lucid dreamed. I've just said to myself, I'm so tired of this. I want to change this up. And then all of a sudden I was in this weird vehicle that was almost like a spaceship that just zoomed away, and instantaneously that nightmare was over and I'd moved on to something else which I don't remember. But that, I believe, is what lucid dreaming is when you can control your dream, when you recognize that it's a dream while still being in the dream and direct it elsewhere. And I made the decision that I don't like how this is going and I want out. And instantaneously at that moment, I appeared in this vehicle all of a sudden rather than walking along the motorway, and I was able to drive off into another dream. And when it happened, right after it happened, I congratulated myself. I was like, you did this. You just lucid dreamed. So I kind of like snapped out of my dream for a moment and then straight back into another dream without waking up. So I think that's what lucid dreaming is, isn't it? If anyone out there is into lucid dreaming, let me know if that's what happened if that was an instance of lucid dreaming. But again, I feel like this was the second instance within the space of a month of me dealing with what's almost been a lifelong recurring nightmare for me. By facing up to it, and part of that process has been simply talking about it in this format, making a YouTube video. So it's almost like discovering that dream therapy, where you talk about your dreams, actually works. Because obviously the fact that I've been having these dreams my entire adult life tells me that it's something that, that's something that has been troubling me at a subconscious level. And all it requires is to acknowledge it and talk about it, and then you can move on. Ever since I had the dream where I drove without the brakes failing, and this happened after, I left this bit out. I had one dream after I made the video about the brake failure thing, where I was on a bike and the brakes weren't working, and I decided to take it to a brake shop, and it was the first time it had ever occurred to me in my dream to fix the brakes. And that was like that was the first step in healing me. And then the next time I had a driving dream, there were no brake problems. After 30 odd years of having brake problems every time I got behind the wheel in a dream. So yeah, back to my point that dream therapy is real. And all you need to do is talk about it, reflect, discuss, recognize, acknowledge. And then next time you have that dream, the solution presents itself in that dream, or you're given the option to lucidly fix it in your dream by redirecting things in your dream. So I guess we'll see if I have any more of these wandering around lost dreams. And if I do, whether I can snap myself out of it again. I'll let you know. But if you are someone who has any insight on this, if you're someone who's done dream analysis, or if you're someone who can, or if you're into lucid dreaming, leave me your comments, let me know your thoughts. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and do subscribe to my channel if you're not already doing so. There's no theme to my channel. I talk about whatever's on my mind. And if you subscribe, it really helps my performance as a budding new YouTuber. Thank you.